So, Tom, I was looking at your IMDb, and you have been a part of a lot of different projects, a lot of different films. So, not only that, you're in commercial production. You have been an AC. You have been a loader. You have been a cinematographer, a producer. You have
Gaffer.
Gaffer, yes, of course. You have a rental company.
Yep.
And is there anything you don't do? Maybe that's the question I should ask.
I don't do hair.
Hair and makeup?
But I actually, that's probably not true. I have a little bit, yeah. I've definitely applied hairspray in windy conditions. Yeah, you know, I've been doing this a long time. And
we were just saying 33 years.
33 years was my first paid gig, 1991, on the movie Judgment Night.
Okay.
Which came through Chicago, and great soundtrack, great movie. If you haven't seen it, Jeremy Piven, Dennis Leary, Cuba Gooding Jr., Stephen Dorff, and it's like But anyway, yeah, that was my first job. 1991. I was 18 years old, and that's a crazy story. How that?
What were you doing on that?
So that was my foot in the door gig. Yep. I was a locations production assistant, so specifically with the locations department, and it was a night movie. Everything was shot at night, and which leads me to another story. After that, I was like, I'm never doing a movie with the word night in it ever again. And so then I got a call several years later, like, hey, this movie's coming to town called Dark Knight. You want to work? No, call someone else.
Dark Knight? No. Are you serious?
Yeah, actually, I am serious.
Wow.
But
it's a Christopher Nolan film. I don't know.
I don't know who that guy is. I don't care. I'm not doing any movies with the word night in it.
Screw that guy.
That is actually a true story.
Legit?
Yeah.
What year was that filmed?
Oh, I don't even remember. There was a lot going on that year.
It came out
2005,
I remember.
Yeah, it was like probably 2003.
I saw it in
then.
IMAX.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Wow.
Night movies with the word night in it means it's all shot at night. So
yeah.
If you are nocturnal, go for it. But no, that was my first break, foot in the door, if you will, was the movie Judgment Night. I was a location PA. They had just come out with cell phones, like the flip phone, the Motorola flip phone, and I was like given one by production, and I just thought that was so cool. Like, I got a phone. I'm like calling on my friends, like
don't
on
have
their
to plug it into the wall.
I'm calling you from my cell phone. And yeah, I learned a lot about how movies are put together, because locations department is one of the first departments hired on, so they are we're trying to find all these places to film all these scenes, and so you have to read the script and understand what they're looking for, and if they need a railroad yard, you need to show 5 railroad yards, and then when they pick the one they like, you have to convince the owners to give you access and permission to
so
film
you're showing them locations before you like got them to sign up or like be like yes.
Well, I was the PA, so there were 2 very experienced location managers, one from LA, a great dude named Ira Rosenstein. He's done look him up on IMDb. He's got quite a list, and so he was kind of like my boss, and they were doing all the real negotiating, and I was kind of the errand boy. So I'd like run a check to the alderman, and
pay off this gangster.
Yeah. Oh, it's Chicago.
I know.
You are not even kidding. Because, okay, if you've seen the movie, it was filmed at a housing project in the River North area, like Rockwell. I think it was called Rockwell Gardens. And it was under construction at the time, so it was mostly
First off,
vacant.
are you okay to tell the story and still be like work in Chicago?
Will you be alive?
This is kind of how Chicago works, so I'm pretty sure it's okay. So we're on this housing project, and it was obviously gang territory, and so we had to like negotiate with the local gangs to say, can you not, shoot at us while we're filming or whatever? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, as long as you hire us for security. So we had all these gang members basically posted out on the corners of the. So we filmed there for like a month.
And given the year, this was Capone's guys, or this was a little like... I'm just trying to gauge.
33 years I've been in the business, not 133 years. These guys were just, this was their turf. Like we were the visitors, not the home
That's
team.
crazy.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
What a good initial jump into the industry, huh?
Yeah, it was wild. I really had no idea what I was getting into, but
Yeah.
I was just grateful to have like a foot in the door. I
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
I've been a photographer since I was in 6th grade when my fantastic teacher, I'm going to shout out to Mr. Phil Block. He was like our science teacher. And then at the after school activities was, darkroom photography, yearbook photography, newspaper. And he was the man who put a Canon EOS 1 in my hands and said, look through the lens. What do you see? And that was like, sparks and rainbows and all that stuff coming out. And I was terrible at it, but, I loved it. So I just kept doing that. And so I've always known I wanted like something in that behind the lens kind of job.
Behind the lens. Yeah, I like that.
And then when I found out that like, even as a kid, like even as like a 10-year-old kid, I thought I should call up like Campbell Soup and tell them I can make their commercials. Like,
wow.
I think my first words were plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief. I just like thought, and then, so when I got old enough to find out that was actually a job, like there was somebody making commercials or, behind the lens of, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to do that.
Wow. That was at, how old were you? Like,
oh, well, so that was probably like high school when because it like before that it was
became
all
a little bit
mystery.
more tangible.
Yeah. I mean, I knew there was like photographers,
right?
But I didn't know there was like cinematographers.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
but you grew up like south side of Chicago, is that right? And then
I grew up on the south side of Chicago.
Were you still living there
collar.
when you got your kind of first gig in the industry?
Yes. Actually, I was like homeless. I had been kicked out of my house when I turned 18, and so I was like, I was a really bad kid.
Sorry, Mom.
Basically, I was just living on the south side. And everyone around me was fireman, paramedic, cop, construction worker. Those were the 4 allowed trades in the world. So I was like, well, I'm going to be a
filmmaker wasn't
photographer.
on the list.
They were like,
sure,
get the hell out of here, kid. And then it took a really long time for even my family, like, because it was basically when I got into the union, they're like, oh, that's a union job? All right, Tommy, keep it up. Good job.
They all of a sudden, they were New Yorkers?
They're Italians, right?
You have no idea.
Are you?
My south side accent has faded drastically. Whenever I go back, my brother, my sister, it's just like, whoa, that's
really,
it's a real thing.
So why do you say you were a bad kid?
Well, truthfully, I was just 18, and as a rite of passage in our neighborhood, you're
Okay.
Get out.
Get out. Yeah. That's how my dad felt,
now.
and I grew up in the country, so
yeah. And of course, life is complicated and all the other things. But truthfully, it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me because I went to an all boys Catholic high school. I was very like programmed for college, like college. And I was really set to go to college. And I got into some great schools that were really expensive. But I ultimately like couldn't go because we just couldn't afford it. So I couldn't go to USC, I couldn't go to Northwestern, but I was like, well, Southern Illinois has a cinematography program. So what if I go there? And they were like, well, let's see. And then basically we couldn't afford it. So I was kind of like, go get a job. Yeah. And so I was like on my way to UPS to get a gig loading trucks or whatever, and like right next door to UPS was this place called Film Products, And I'm like, wow, that's a sign. Like, I'm going to go turn in there, right? Go up to the front desk. Are you guys hiring? I'm like, oh, yeah, here, fill this out. And then I'm like, oh, cool. And I fill it out and I give it back to the lady. She's like, can you stick around for a couple minutes? I'll go get the manager. Maybe he can talk to you. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. And he's like, yeah. Talks to me for a minute. And then I'm like, I don't know what you guys do with film, but I know it's something to do with film. It's my foot in the door. This is it, man. I'm going to do this. So what did we do here exactly? He's like, well, we vaporize aluminum and put it onto plastic, and then we make potato chip bags. I was like, I'm in, man. Yeah. I'm in.
That's some type of film. Maybe it's not celluloid, but
so that was my first film gig, honestly. And then, but I still had that drive and that. And now again, this is before the internet.
Yeah,
sure.
This is before cell phones. I had a pager, which cost me like $6.99 a month, which was like, I don't know if I can afford this. Yeah. You had to keep like a roll of quarters in your.
Do you remember what pagers were, Victor? You're a little on the.
I've never actually seen one in person.
Right.
I never had one. My dad
seen
had
them
one,
in TV.
And prior to that, it was like only drug dealers had them, really. Like, so I was like, oh, well. But anyway.
Well, it's the question I want to ask you this is because, I mean, it's such a different era now, right?
Truly.
And so looking at how I started, I had this this dream, this vision at 10 years old, and I knew I wanted to make movies. That's just like, there's nothing else I could do in the world. But at that point, it was somewhat still inaccessible because I thought, okay, it's obviously who you know, and that I had in my mind, and I tried to look for opportunities, but still it was like impossible. I lived in Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, in a town of 1,200 people. How do you get to these opportunities and in front of these people? And thankfully, we had commercial work, and obviously there was commercial work, not as much probably back then, but I feel like this commercial route is kind of a leg into it because you're getting paid, and it's flexible. You get to create and learn at the same time. So when you were starting out, what was in your mind? What were these different routes that you could take that would lead to this ultimate end that you wanted?
Well, it started with potato chip bags, as we
right.
Obviously, it starts with potato chip bags, and then. So then it's still networking, and I networked within my own network. And my uncle is like, I think I know this guy who does industrial films. I'll give you,
okay.
I'll give him a call. And I didn't even know what industrial films were, honestly. I'm talking while I'm working at the film products, making potato chip bags. I'm hustling. I'm like after work, I'm like, trying to figure it out. And believe it or not, this is a crazy story too. My mom wrote, like, she was reading the Southtown Economist, and there was an article about this guy who runs this arts program on the southeast side of Chicago where he raises money to give to kids to paint murals on the side of bridges. And happens to be at the end of the article, he also works in the motion picture industry as a location scout.
Oh, wow.
My mom wrote this guy like a 3-page handwritten letter about how I've always wanted to be a filmmaker and I got accepted to these schools, but we can't afford it. And now I'm trying to like find my way into the business, and
that's super sweet.
Mailed it to this guy.
Wow.
And he called me back.
No kidding.
And he's like, I just happen to have this movie starting up. Would you be interested in
wow.
being my PA? And I was like,
and that was the movie you were talking about.
What's a PA?
Yeah. So you had no formal training then at that point?
No. Oh, well, just as so to backtrack a little bit more. So in high school, I was waiting for a friend who was in the newspaper staff. And so it was after school. I'm just hanging out. They're having their newspaper meeting, and I'm just like lingering in the back of the room. And on the wall was this little advertisement with some pull card mail-in thing for Northwestern University's summer program. Okay. And I didn't know what it was. I was just sitting there bored with a pen in my hand. And I was like, it'd be cool to get mail, right? And again, I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, college. And so anyway, it just so happens as we're walking out of the building, I passed the school mailbox and I threw it in there. A week or two later, this big envelope comes with the application for the summer program at Northwestern. I'm like, well, it's like a college application. I should fill it out and just practice and like see how you do it. And you had to write an essay and do this stuff. And literally, I'm like typing it on a typewriter, like making mistakes, whiting it out, going back, typing it. Like the essay, the whole form, everything was like that. And I honestly didn't really put much thought into it at all, other than it was like a practice application. And but you had to choose one of the programs, and one of the programs, so there was like speech, debate, theater, science and engineering, and then there was this one called RTVF. I'm like, what's that? And then it said radio, television, video, film. I'm like, oh, that's better than Lincoln debate. So I clicked that. I got accepted. So a couple, as soon as I got the acceptance letter, I'm like, oh, sweet. So I was like curious, how well did I do? So I call up the front desk and I'm asking them like, hey, I got accepted to the Northwestern, Cherubs program. How many people applied? They're like, oh, about 1,000. I'm like, from Illinois? And they're like, no, from all over the world. How many got accepted? 64.
Wow.
I was like, damn, okay. So I'm like, how much is it? They're like, $2,500. I'm like, well, thanks. But so that summer
it's only
went
gotten
on.
worse.
Yeah, that summer went on. This is my junior year in high school. As that summer goes on, I'm my parents, my dad got remarried. My stepmom and I were not getting along. It was a long summer, and the mail keeps coming. Like, I haven't paid a dime, but they're like, see you in July, and here's where you're going to live, and bring this when you come. And I'm just like, I didn't tell my parents. No, I was like definitely planning on not going because I was not going to be, I don't have $2,500. Not going to happen. Well, that week of, we kind of got into like a heated, like, teenage angst moment. I'm like, and I went. I just showed up. I brought my stuff and I just checked in like to the front desk and stayed.
Really?
Nobody asked you about the money. You're just like,
no. Well, so that's an interesting part because there was an essay about like financial aid, and I did write a very compelling argument of why I needed it. So I felt like maybe the administrators were kind of like playing fast and loose with it, just to kind of see, if I was a troublemaker, beat it. But if I'm here to do it for real, like, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened. And cool. I was surrounded by 63 of like lost souls. Like, we were all just like, wow, you're like me, but we're from all over the world. And, and then we're in this intensive 5-week hands-on, here's a camera, here's some film, this is how you edit, this is, go make a TV show, go make a commercial. Yeah. And it was like, my mind was just blown. I was like the happiest kid for 5 weeks, surrounded by, other kids just like me. And we're all just like, wow, can you believe this? And then the staff, the teachers and the professor that was running it was another great mind. Robert Thompson. He was a professor at Syracuse. He taught like TV and film criticism, and he just had these amazing presentations. And all the other staff were like working Hollywood professionals. And pretty much some of the best advice they gave us is like, you don't need film school.
Yeah.
They're like, just keep doing this. And I was like, all right, fine.
Even then too, huh?
Yeah, that was like my junior year in high school.
Okay.
So after that, even my senior year, like, we had prom, and we had this thing in high school called One TV, where it's like they put TVs in every classroom, and like for 20 minutes in the morning, you had to, like, in homeroom, you watched like this TV show called TV One, and it was like current events, news, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
But I was like, I wonder if I can show something on there that I made. And so I paid for prom by making commercials for the limo guy, the tuxedo guy, and the florist guy.
Oh, wow.
And I'm talking literally like putting cassettes like in VHS cassette players, like shooting it with, I had like steal my dad's VHS shoulder camera and then like put the cassette into this VCR and get another VCR and then press play and press pause right away. Like
tape to tape cuts.
Tape to tape cuts. Yep.
Wow.
And then I made like I made this commercial for this guy, Limo Bob, who is a character. Look him up. He's from the South Side, Hickory Hills, and he just like thought, like, this kid is exactly what I need.
Yeah.
I want to be famous, and he's got a camera. So we became kind of quick, short friends, and actually he made it to Sundance like in 2018. They made this movie about like. I wish I remember the name. Look it up. But Limo Bob, thanks, man. You gave me my first break.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell this story. Then you can take it away.
Go ahead.
But speaking of working with Tom, I don't know if you remember this. You probably do, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time I worked with you. I showed up probably really late, like 45 minutes to an hour late. It was a McDonald's ad in like this loft situation.
Okay.
And do you remember this at all?
I mean, keep going.
So yeah, keep going. So yeah. Well, it was just because I mean everybody in Chicago I feel like knows Tom pretty much. Like, or especially if you're like, oh, I'm from Rockford, they're like, oh, do you know Tom? So it's like, yeah, you've been in it long enough. Like everyone is at least aware.
It's a
of you,
small
sort of
town.
thing.
Yeah,
it's not that big of an
It's not
industry,
that big.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I had known you for years. I would rent gear from you, sporadically, being in the same town and all that. But I think I'm pretty sure it was the first project that we worked together on. I was.
This is striking a bell. Yeah.
And
what did I say?
I don't remember what you. Well, actually, you were. I could tell you were not happy, but you said something that was not. It was. What I remember that you said was like, you can show up like once every 3 years. I think
Yeah,
was the thing you said.
That's
to me.
probably
I'm like,
it happens.
felt
It definitely
terrible.
happens. I've definitely been late.
It just happened to be the first time I worked with him. Like, wow, this is a great start to.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really hold it against you. I feel as like someone in leadership, which in that situation I was, there has to be mention of it, and it has to be appropriate.
I would have said something to myself. I was in the other seat too.
Well, that's the other thing. I know that feeling, so I've been in that situation. So I know like you already are like killing yourself softly.
And it was the terrible part about it was we had to truck everything up the stairs of this, like there was no elevator.
Yeah.
So I missed that whole like load in.
Yes.
Some other grip on the project was eyeing me when I came in. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. There's nothing to do in the middle of the day. It's the beginning and the end that you really need to be there.
Man.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, in my defense, there was an accident on the express lanes and I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I was just sitting there like watching my.
Which
but,
is
like you go ahead, you go like hours early, sit at a coffee shop or something. That's like what you do, right?
I do, because I've been in that situation and it's unpleasant and shit happens. I mean, and I lived through the whole I-90 thing.
Nightmare.
That was like, I look at pictures of myself in that period of life and just like, you could just see like the stress and the like, sleeplessness and the oh my god, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Adding these 4 hours of sitting in traffic to my 10, 12
why
hour
do
day.
I live in Rockford? I shouldn't be here.
When did you move to Rockford? And because you were a Chicago
2001.
2001
and met a girl, fell in love, and this is where she was
That'll do
from, and I was like, I'm going where she's going, wherever that is. And still married to her to this day. I basically came to visit her and never left. Just that
Awesome.
one night, yeah. So
And you're taking the traffic every week.
yeah, I did it yesterday.
Worth it?
For her, yes.
I thought it was so interesting because I think it takes a certain mindset to be in this industry, and especially in filmmaking, and just to be an entrepreneur, a business owner at that. And I think your story of how you did the summer program, Northwestern, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is such a, it's just something people in our industry would do. You know, you're getting these envelopes and you're like, oh, all right, well, I'll go. Let's just see what happens. You know, like that's the mentality that you need, and to just try new things and to just learn constantly. And so I guess my question with that is, do you think there's what kind of people, I guess, does it take to be in this line of work, and what kind of people have you met along the way that you're like, yeah, these are really tough roles, and no, the average person would not be able to be in this industry because it is a difficult industry.
We often joke around like if I just like worked at Allstate, I'd probably been the CEO 10 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
just from a work ethic standpoint?
Just from a pure work ethic standpoint. Yeah. I mean, I didn't write that joke. I heard that joke and I thought like, yeah, that's kind of true.
Yeah.
You know, so on that note, like, so I wasn't able to go to college, but I was like dead set on going to college, and all my friends were going to college. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be the guy changing their oil when they come back. Like I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
So I literally went to the library, because again, this is before the internet. I went to the library every single day for 3 hours minimum and just picked a book, opened it up, read it. Articles, magazines, whatever I can get my hands on. And not just about filmmaking. I mean, there was actually those resources were very limited, especially, in Elsip, Illinois. And a shout out to the Elsip Marina Park Library and Mrs. Nommensen and all the reference librarians there who like kept me like moving. And I learned what an autodidact was from one of the librarians there. She's like, "Oh, you're like a little autodidact." I'm like,
what does
I'm gonna look that up right now. So that craving for learning, that what my favorite part, like if you were to ask me when I was 17 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would have just started with architect, airplane pilot, baker. I just can go down the list. I could have been any of those things. I'm fascinated by every single one of them. And that is like one of the true gifts of this industry, is that you get to dive in depth to almost every business or every profession and see what they do in the way they present themselves and how they do it. I've filmed conferences
so commercial
about
market specifically, right?
gastrointestinal professionals, and whatever it is, there's something fascinating about it to me.
Yeah.
And so I really do enjoy that part of our business, and that's kind of what makes me still go with it, because I was like, what am I going to learn tomorrow? And I'm always going to learn something. It's always new. So yeah.
And I there's also something just in the mindset. That's an impressive story, by the way. Sitting in a library for 3 hours and just diving in.
Well, and then I would go visit my friends who were going to school on Wednesdays, so I could sit in on their classes on Thursdays and Friday, like audit them, whatever. But I was basically just like, I'm getting my education for free. Haha, suckers. Wow. And they got, well, let me clarify. Some of them got the piece of paper. Most of them did not, because college was expensive for them as well, more challenging for them as well. And they were like, I'm just going to become a fireman anyway. So, a very noble and fine, but I wasn't drawn to that. And I also didn't have the connections to become a fireman or a paramedic or a cop. Like my dad worked at CTA and he wanted me to work at CTA, like my grandfather did and all his uncles did. And
Chicago Transit Authority.
Yeah. My dad started there when he was 18, like sweeping out buses, and then retired from there when he was like 47 years old or something after 20 years, gotten a pension. Can you imagine? I'm just like, my dad is pretty smart.
45.
Yeah. He retired at like, I think 47, 48 years old. And then, had his whole life to figure out what he wanted to do next.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. But I mean, you're getting to figure out different aspects of life throughout like this whole process, whether it's commercial or film stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like living multiple lives almost.
Yeah, and doing it from Rockford too,
Yeah.
which is like a whole nother obstacle. I mean, Chicago was tough because it was a small market at the time, and we mostly just did movies when I started. So it was like a movie from out of town would come through town. The handful of people would all be competing for that job, and then the job would go away.
Yeah.
We did not have TV shows like we do now. Thanks, Dick
really?
Wolf. Oh
Okay,
no,
wow.
yeah, there were.
Something with the past mayor or something didn't like TV or something like that, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of obstacles. It was mostly, I think, the Illinois tax incentive
Yeah.
finally kind of like cracked the code. In the 90s, and when I first came into the business, our major competitor was Canada. So productions from California, if you had $1 million to make a thing here in the United States, well, if you go to Canada, you have $1.7 million because of the exchange rate for the dollar.
Yep.
And then, a grip in Canada works for $17 an hour versus 35 or whatever. So Canada was our big competitor, and everybody was focused on that. So then they started with the tax incentives to try to lure that money back into the United States. And then it became competitive amongst states. So some early adopters were getting
Atlanta,
Georgia, and many states played with the idea. Illinois really dialed it in, and thank you, legislators, for listening to us, because this business does pump a lot of outside money into the state. And that's the thing. Like, if we all just regurgitate the same $10, fine, that's great. It stays in the state. But what you are looking for is injection.
Sure.
And movies and TV shows, they don't really have an accounts receivable department. They just have an accounts payable. So
Spend a lot
someone's coming in with $10 million and they're going to leave with none of it. It's all just going to stay here.
That's a good point.
And so hotels, caterers, taxis, you name it. Not just the labor that's
Rockford Area of Convention Visitors Bureau. I hope you're listening right now. I just had a dinner with them last night.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I have a great idea for a campaign for Rockford.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I'll save it. I'm
Okay,
going
this
to
is-
NDA that one.
Yeah,
But,
sure.
But I do have a great idea. Okay. Come talk to me. So anyway.
But Chicago's always been a big commercial market, right? I mean, Leo Burnett, all the advertising stuff.
Yes. And it's funny. I didn't even know that really until later in my career, after doing movies for 5 or 6 years. I finally got introduced to the commercial world, which was a very separate world at that time. It still kind of is now, but then I was like, oh, this is interesting. And it's very different. It's not fiction. It's always a bright sunny day. You're not really using moody gels or everything is like sunshine, which is fine and great. And that's what they need. And that's how they sell their products. And, but it's also very controlled because it has to be, you got 900 frames, right? So you got 30 seconds. Each frame is valuable. And the craft of that is very different than a movie where you maybe do 2-3 takes, move on, and mood lighting. Commercials is like, yay, yum, great, wow.
One reaction.
And then when you can do comedy, I've always been attracted to the comedy, and
Comedic advertising stuff?
Comedic,
Or-
comedy, but comedic advertising specifically because it's such a tight window, and that's a perfect formula for comedy. Comedy has to hit the beats now, and so here I am. I'm 20. Well, at that time I was like 27. The Chicago market there was a writer's strike, there was an actor's strike, everyone's out of work. I meet this girl, she's beautiful, she lives in Rockford. I follow her here. And then I turn on the TV and I see like, oh, this is not Chicago anymore. We're not watching like Chicago commercials. We're watching Rockford commercials.
Which were probably great at the time.
And I'm like, well, surely I could do better than that. And I was interested in advertising, and I was reading an article written by Leo Burnett, who said, if you want to learn advertising, kid, go down to the corner, knock on the business's door, and tell them you want to do their advertising. And pretty quickly, you'll learn everything you need to know about advertising. I was like, great advice. Who's on my corner? Al Grace Appliance. I literally do exactly that. I go to the Al Grace Appliance. I walk in the front door. I say, who's in charge? Take me to your leader.
That's awesome.
And I said, hey, I live down the street. I do this. I'd love to help you make better commercials than the ones that you're doing now.
Is there a place we can see this commercial?
Yes, there is.
Is there?
So I have a YouTube. It's either Film Rockford, because that's what I kind of called myself back then, or it might be Tommy C. TOMMYSEE. I'll have to look that up. To be honest with you, I don't really remember.
Kiko's going to see if he can find it here.
We can.
If you find
I'd be
it,
happy
Kiko,
to
let us
send
know.
you some links to show you some of my early work here in Rockford.
How did you convince the because at that time, like, a video was just a video. I feel like the quality, like, even now, some people disconnect why that is important. What was your process of convincing?
So, truthfully, this was at the brink. Adobe Premiere 6.5.
Okay.
You can buy a computer for, at that time, like $2,000, which was pretty expensive, and you had to have a really fast graphics card. But then you could, and someone gave me a copy of the CD with
Same.
the
completely legal copy that we purchased at full price.
Yes, and truthfully, I did.
We just lost our fill light.
We did lose our fill light.
Should have plugged that in.
Cut.
Yeah, another.
It's gonna be darker from here on out. Sorry, continue.
Repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
What was the how do you convince someone even at that time, why does that matter?
Well,
Does the quality
and they
matter?
had no money. So basically, the TV stations were doing it for free. So they would come and produce your commercial for nothing, but you're buying $60,000 worth of ad time throughout the year. So, and then there's kind of Hills Marketing, Monica. Thank you too. You're a big early believer in me, and she helped convince them that maybe this kid was worth a shot. We had a meeting, and we talked about ideas, and I said, well, what about this? What about this? And we all just kind of jived.
Okay.
They got my sense of humor, I got theirs.
Yeah.
And so we just started with and then what's the budget? And I was like, I don't know.
It looks like Kiko might have found something here. Can you put that on the preview monitor?
Okay. So do the Al Grace Appliance peanut sale with boy, I should send you some links. Please edit all this boring stuff out.
That's not on the screen yet.
This is Lonnie's car. Yeah, that's a great one actually. So we can show this one. So this is one I wrote and directed for Lonnie's, and that's Jeff Schroeder, and he's another fantastic Rockfordian. Me and him were collaborators early in the day, and he was always like the act. If you look at the body of work, can we hear it?
Can we get sound on that?
I want this.
I know. I want it too.
Yeah, this is a really nice rug. Would you like to take it home?
Yeah, we love it.
We'll take it.
This is
for
it.
sure.
Area rugs now 40% off at Lonnie's Carpet Max.
So what
That's
year
a
was
little
this?
suggestive, Tom. I don't.
Yeah.
All of them are suggestive. If you can find the one, Al
Yes,
Grace,
we 100% embrace that.
Al Grace Appliance HDED. Let's see. Anyway, we would sit down, and of course, I was barely making any money. There's the Al Grace Appliance peanut sale. This was probably my first paid gig.
It's the Al Grace Appliance peanut sale, and we're going nuts.
Get a refrigerator, range, and dishwasher set for just $12.99. Plus, get an over-the-range microwave free.
That is nuts.
Al, peanuts are not technically nuts, they're legumes.
La what?
Legumes.
It's the El Grace Appliance Peanut Sale, and we're going Lagoon.
That's legume.
Legume? Lagoon? What rhymes with Lagoon? Lagunas?
Al Grace, appliances and other neat stuff.
Are you sure they're not nuts?
That's gold. What year was that?
That's pretty great.
2007, 2006. Yeah.
Wow.
And so they had that idea already, and we just kind of worked it out a little bit, and we filmed in my studio space, which was downtown Rockford above Rad, currently Rad now.
I just ran into Jared last night.
Oh yeah, he's great, long time, first neighbor in Rockford, really. So yeah, he's a great dude. So I had the loft space upstairs, and we filmed that in the.
You wrote it too,
in the
or?
room. Yeah, well, they had that idea pretty sketched out. So
Okay.
it was more of like a, can you execute this?
Yeah,
and
okay.
we worked on some of the things. But the funny thing that everyone remembers about that is it sounds like he's saying penis sale.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say.
And so everyone loved it. And their tagline was already Al Grace appliances and other neat stuff, which is a play on other neat shit. So they were very already in the blue.
Edgy.
Edgy. Nice.
So now, if you can find the one that is HD Edie, Al Grace Appliance HD Edie, this was kind of my second one, but this is the one completely written and developed by me, and I'm very proud of it. Although again, the quality doesn't hold up because we were filming. I think Corbin. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to call you out on this one, but Corbin Tyson and I became friends. I kind of reached out, or being a new guy in town, I didn't know anybody, and I was like, these guys are doing video. Maybe I can figure out what's going on here. And I met Corbin at Heartland, and we, of course, hit it off fantastically. And he was already doing things for like Ingratia and I can't remember a few other ones, the furniture store. Yeah. Okay. And so he had a couple clients, and he had an opportunity, and he hired me on, and I helped him out with lighting. And, but we would borrow the camera because of course cameras were expensive. I didn't have money. And we would borrow the camera from the church on the weekends and go film these things for like Al Grace. Now he had permission. It was okay. But then I think that's how we filmed the Al Grace stuff too. Was like Corbin kind of borrowed the camera.
Sure. Yeah.
Set
What
it
kind?
up.
What camera?
You gotta do
kind
what
of
you
camera
gotta
was
do.
it?
The
at the time?
HVX 100.
Oh yeah.
The camera
It's like a skater cam.
just totally changed the world. It had so here's
this it here?
HD ED. Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
It can be frustrating.
Marvin's confidence was lacking, we were both losing interest, and he started putting in more time at work.
There were a lot of excuses. I was running from the problem. Then we visited our HD expert at Al Grace Appliance, and the embarrassment and discomfort went away instantly.
Thanks to Al Grace, watching TV together is enjoyable again.
We're like kids again. Some nights we can watch for hours.
And hours.
Al Grace Appliance, HD TVs, and other neat stuff.
Do you have anything bigger?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I mean, tip our hats to El Grace for taking risks, right?
Yeah, they loved it. And
people.
literally, he called me back a couple of weeks later and said, "Thanks to your commercial, HD TV sales are up like 700% in the store."
Wow.
And I'm like, "What?" And he's like,
and you're like, "What's my
"You want to do
commission on
another
that?"
one?" Yeah, you want
That's
to do
awesome
another
to
one?
hear.
Yeah, so it does work. Now they also get a lot of calls, and same with Lonnie's. Like Lonnie's and Al Grace were both under the Hills Marketing umbrella, and they would get calls to the TV station like, "You can't show that on TV," and they loved those calls. Because they're like, people are watching them, people are seeing them.
Yeah.
So they weren't offended by people who were offended, which
that's great.
I thought was.
Can I tell you a
great.
quick story about another local brand or former Alpine Bank? We
yeah.
did their ads for a little while, but there was one ad we shot that was you probably didn't see it because it aired for such a short period of time, but the concept was like this couple sits down at a fancy restaurant, and there's like a sommelier sort of character, like a wine expert sort of character that comes in, and he's holding a bottle of aged milk, and they pour it out, and it's chunky. And the marketing team thought it was hilarious. We thought it was hilarious. I think the actors kind of, they killed it.
Yeah.
But they put it out in the air for, I don't know, it was maybe 2 weeks. And then for some reason, people did not like it. Like, oh, stop playing that during dinner hour, and they just, and then I guess there was some milk association or something that banked at Alpine Bank. And they're like, you take this off the air, or we're like taking our money somewhere else.
Wow.
So it was but they did not take a risk. They decided to take it down and go back to another ad that we'd filmed previously. And I found out a couple months later that they were fixing to sell the bank, which they did.
Which they did, yeah.
So I didn't want to take any risks, but
Wow,
that's crazy.
Now, do you still do advertising? Like, are you producing? I know you do commercial stuff as like a day player, right? But
yes. Well, so not recently. No, not for a while. However, I am still very attracted to the idea of it, and would do it. I would do it. But I found that just, here locally, the market, again, I was young, I was dumb, I needed the money.
Yeah.
I didn't really make any money. I mean, and so this is kind of how Second Cine started, because every time I was filming a commercial, I needed a light, I needed a C-stand, I needed a sandbag, I needed an apple box, I needed a stinger. So I would have to run to Chicago to kind of get a couple
no one
things.
in town who had the stuff.
Right. No one in town had that stuff. So that's kind of how the collection began. Every time I did a job, I'd buy another tool. And over time, it grew. My first truck was like a Dodge Ram 50. Literally like one size bigger than a go-kart, like
a Dodge Ram 50.
A Dodge Ram 50. It's super small, super small. It
like similar to a Ranger.
I would say, probably like 3/4 of a Ranger.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it was small.
Wow.
But I put all my money in it, and it had the cool thing. It had a cover over the top of it, like
it's like a pickup.
Yeah, it's a pickup.
Okay.
And I finally one day maxed that thing out with all the gear I had, and I was like, I can't. So that was which then I grew into another bigger, crappier truck, and
okay, he's gonna pull it up here for us.
Yeah, that's a Datsun. It's pretty close to that. Yeah, that is a Ram. Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was white though.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we've all been there where it's just like, I used to put everything in like a gold, like small SUV, and it was just like everything was
gold?
Filled up.
Like it was gold.
Yeah, it was gold, actual gold. But like you couldn't see out any windows, and I'd be driving for 2 hours to Minneapolis, just not safe.
No.
One of the things that I wanted to pick your brain on is like some of the roles that you're into. It's like you have to be a technician and an artist at the same time.
Arts and sciences.
Yeah. That's exactly what Joe was saying earlier. So how do you, number one, how do you kind of balance that? Because I know you seem like a very creative guy. So as creatives, we need that kind of outlet, that channel. Do you find something outside of like the technician jobs that you do, or does it or do you find avenues to do that in your regular roles?
So the equipment is technical, and yes, you are a problem solver and kind of a magician of where to tap, but the creativity can be applied to all aspects of life. I mean, from the way you comb your hair to, even how you drive. I can find a creative. So one of the greatest things that can foster creativity are limitations, budget and time. And when you're given at least like, these are the constraints, just like a 30-second commercial, you got 30 seconds. You have to not only make a funny ad, but it has to sell something, and it has to relate to the brand that you are selling. So the Al Grace Appliance commercials hit all of those things. It sold you something, it was funny, and you knew exactly where to go to get it. Mm-hmm. So and it wasn't just funny. Like there's AT&T commercials and Geico commercials and Liberty Mutual commercials where they're funny. I couldn't tell you what the brand was or what they were selling, So even at the multi-million-dollar level of paying a team of brilliant creatives to make a commercial for you. And we'll see this on the Super Bowl. You'll see some hilariously genius comic ads, and you won't know what the hell they're selling you. And come the next day, they'll ask you, remember, did you see that ad for AT&T? You're like, huh? And if I see that puffy coat one ever again, anyway, I don't want to go there. So I feel like that's really the challenge, is you have to have parameters. And so as an equipment owner, I get this question all the time. I get some young filmmaker who has no money and has this idea, and they're like, can you please donate, your truck to me or whatever? And my answer is always no. And the reason is, I would hate to deny you the true experience of being a director or a producer by giving this to you for free. Because if you don't have the constraints of time, and you don't have the constraints of money, and you don't have the constraints of the crew and the resources that you're dealt, then you're never going to be creative, because you're never going to have the pressure to force yourself into making a compromise or a creative compromise. And believe me, at all levels, even if you have $1 billion, there's creative compromises.
Yeah. I was gonna just mention that too. Like, I mean, I used to listen to a lot of like different producers talking, because I thought I was gonna be a producer, and it was interesting to me how even at the highest levels, they're always talking about the budget constraints. It's like, well, we're gonna shoot this scene this way, but because of the budget, we did this, or because of the budget, and it's like they're working on multi-million-dollar movies. That never goes away. So you got to work within whatever the constraints are you have.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and be grateful for the constraints, because at least you know what they are now. The worst is like when you don't know what they are, and you're just like, let's get Morgan Freeman to,
to come in on a techno crane for no reason.
For no reason, right. Yeah. But I do believe that those are what creates, and even as a gaffer, even as a key grip, those same constraints create creativity, and you'll do something you've never done before, and you'll be like, oh, that was awesome.
When you were saying like being like any role can be creative in a way, I remember this political ad we were working on, and we had I think it was a 2x3 diffusion of some sort that was noisy. So it was like a Roscoe or whatever. And I knew it was a problem, like, well, that's the diffusion Tom wanted, what should I do? And then you showed me this trick where you we grabbed like a plastic cup from Crafty, and then put a bungee cord over, like, from each side of the frame, and had the cup on there that created just enough pressure on it that stopped the noise and the breeze.
Yep. And I learned that from Joe G. Thanks, Joe G.
I saw that trick on Instagram, actually. I was like, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's a great thing too, is like you kind of are gifted every job and everybody you work with like a tool from their toolbox.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things about being a filmmaker from Chicago was all these big movies would come to town, and they would, they could bring their gaffer and they could bring their key grip, but they couldn't bring every grip, and they couldn't bring every camera assistant. So when a big movie like comes through town, here I am, all of a sudden I'm the second AC, and I'm standing this close to Steven Soderbergh and Matt Damon and listening to them explain, do their work. Yeah. And I can absorb and just go, wow.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, a new movie comes through town, and two, other huge players come through town, and I'm like, and now I'm absorbing their tricks and their toolboxes.
Yeah. And that's those are the things that you can't pay for that experience.
I got paid.
Yeah. Well,
you
right,
exactly. To learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's another great scam I pulled off throughout life, was that I didn't pay for college. I got paid for every job. And then I passed that on by training and teaching new people the same way, by giving them a paycheck without, we always joke, like we meet the kids from Columbia all the time, or DePaul, and it's like, well, you're giving them $50,000. Why don't you just give me 45? I'll save $5,000 and you'll be making 60.
Yeah. I mean, when I was thinking it was like 18, 17. I drove to Grand Rapids, Michigan from Minneapolis area. I slept in my car for like 8 days straight just to be like on set, because I was like, I need to get this experience of like being there and seeing it and feeling it. Like those are you can't
yeah.
buy that.
That's my stomach gets all excited, and
Yeah.
I'll never forget the first time on another job I did early in my locations PA career for kind of the same team was The Untouchables, the TV show. And I'll never forget the first time you walk on set and you see all the costumes and all the lighting, and you're just like, wow, what is that? And they're like bouncing it into a beadboard, and you're like, that blows my mind.
I think I saw that at Home Depot.
But just like the excitement and the true adrenaline rush, and like you didn't want to miss it. You wanted to be there and just to see it or just to experience it. And like, that still doesn't go away. I felt that yesterday.
You know, that's awesome because, you know, on that first film that I was 17, 18, drove 12, 14 hours, slept in the car. And the first or second day I show up to set, and I was just an extra, and then I asked if I could stick around. The producer's like, yeah, stick around. Got to be second AC, actually, weirdly enough, like 4 days later, which was a weird story. But here I'm learning everything. But you know what? I remember I didn't know what anything was. I'm walking on set, and I'm seeing lights. I'm seeing floppies covering windows, you know, all this new gear. And the G&E team is sitting out on their truck. And I'm like, I'm excited, you know, enthusiastic, and they just look like they've been through war. And they said something to me that was like never left my mind. They're like, basically, they're like, go do something else. if you wanna have a good life, go do something else. And I was like, oh no. Like I thought everyone who was in the film industry just wanted to be there. So it's like the mindset was so strange to me because I'm like, give me any opportunity.
There are a lot of kind of crusty old grips.
Right. So and I'm like, and that's where I'm like interested in because I've seen those people. And that stays with me forever because I'm like, if I'm ever at that point, I'm like, go do something else. What is it that like keeps you going and gets this drive because you have such a passion and fire for it, and you're doing so many different things? So what is it that like about this industry and line of work that
I'm literally too old to do anything else now. I'm unemployable in any other industry. I couldn't even But
you seem to have a fire for it too.
Well, thank you.
You know?
Thank you. I feel
inspiring.
like I do, yeah. And especially after 33 years, it's crazy. I literally haven't had another job in 33 years. And something you said, here you said something about being an extra, and I have a great story. Maybe we can end on this great story. I know we're already at an hour. Can you believe that? So quick.
We did have a little break.
We did have a
little break. So
are you good on time?
Yeah, I'm totally good. But this is my one of my favorite stories. I was 18, so the movie Judgment Night. We filmed in Chicago for 2.5 months roughly, and then the production moved back to Los Angeles to finish the show. And I kind of begged and pleaded to say, "Can you take me with you?" And Ira was like, "Listen, you can come and finish the movie, and I maybe give you a job on security or whatever." But you know, he had that whole thing already figured out, and you know, you'll have to pay for yourself to get there. And I'm like, all right, fine, I don't care, I'm going. So I pack up my belongings, I get into my car, and I drive across the country, which everybody should do, by the way.
Yeah.
Everyone should do that.
My favorite thing to do, honestly.
And so it's Christmas break. The movie is on a hiatus because it's December. And and they'll pick up again in January after the New Year's. So I get to LA, I find an apartment, I have a roommate, and I'm like, now what do I do? Right? I'm sitting around, I got nothing to do. So I'm sitting there at home at 10 o'clock in the morning watching TV, and the movie Beethoven comes on.
The dog?
The dog, yeah. Ivan Reitman movie. And so I'm watching the movie, and then I'm watching the credits. I think this is a unique thing that everyone in our industry does. We actually watch the credits. I try to. I always sit there and watch them. And I see executive producer Gordon Webb, and then I see extras casting, central casting. I'm like, oh, I should go become an extra for a week or whatever, right? So I get out the Yellow Pages. If you're not familiar, it's a big book. It's the Google in print. And I flip to, I'm in Los Angeles. So, I find Central Casting. They're in Burbank. I call them up and I say, hey, I'm a friend of Gordon Webb's. I'm in town for a couple weeks. And he said I should come down there and maybe get some extra work. Oh, yeah. Can you be here tomorrow? I'm like, yeah. Can you be here at 7:30? Yeah, no problem. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. So, the next day comes, I get up nice and early, take a shower, drive down to Burbank, and I arrive at the address. It's a very plain looking office building, and they tell me, come to the first door. Okay, so I get up the elevator, I open the hallway, and there's 2 doors, and there's 2 lines of people. One line of people at the first door and another line of people at the second door, and everyone in that line is holding a Christmas present. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And then I look at my clock, it's 7:30, nothing's happening. 7:35, nothing's happening. And I'm like, they told me to be here at 7:30. So I go and I just knock on the door, and everyone was like shocked, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, they told me to be here at 7:30. A lady opens the door and is like, can I help you? I'm like, hey, I'm Tom. You guys told me to be here at 7:30. And they're like, oh, Gordon's friend, right? Yeah, come on in. Come on. We wanted to get you in before the crowd. So,
did you know Gordon?
Yeah.
Or was this just...
Never met Gordon Webb in my life.
This is the mindset I was talking about, Tom. This is the mindset of an adventurer.
So so if you ever never signed up to be an extra, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a whole form like, can you roller skate? Do you play football? Do you ice skate? Will you be naked? Blah, blah, blah. I fill all that out and I give the lady the clipboard back, and she takes a red pen and writes something on the top, and she puts it down. She's like, I'll be right back. Stay right here. She goes next door, and I kind of peek over at it, and it says, friend of Gordon Webb, star, circle, red ink. Right? I'm like,
okay, this is my start.
Let's let this roll. She goes and gets Carl Joy, who's the head of Central Casting. He takes me and personally introduces me to every single agent. Now, so this wall is like tables and chairs and blackboard. This other room is like agents at cubicles with piles and piles of headshots and resumes, and they're on headsets. And now the office is open, right? It's like 8 o'clock now. And everyone in that other line with holding Christmas presents were there to kind of like visit the agents, re-update their headshot, butter the bread with a little bit of Christmas joy. And basically there's a whole system about this. So like on Mondays, like people with the letters A through L can come, and on Wednesdays, people with the letter K through Z or whatever.
Yeah.
So everyone, this is a routine. Everyone does this, and you just kind of come through, pass off your new resume, say hello, get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And these agents are busy. They're on the phone. People are calling them. We need 12 extra for tomorrow. Can they be here? And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, okay. And then on top of that, they have these people coming around like, hey, remember me? It's Mandy. Hey, here's some banana bread.
Yeah.
And and then I got Carl Joy just like, get out of our way. This is Tom. He is here finally to save our industry with his beautiful face. Put him in everything. and then like Mandy's like, what about my banana bread? He's like, get out of here. Put that on the table. So he literally so graciously takes me around to every agent, shakes my hand, looks me in the eye. Like, are you busy Monday? Are you busy Friday? Can you do this one? So for 2 weeks straight, I was on like everything. I was on like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was on all the, like, I was being shot at by in a tuxedo from guys in a helicopter at like a mob movie. And the movie Son-in-Law, I'm in that. And so also though, word didn't just stay on that piece of paper. Then they would call the first AD or the second AD of the movie and say, hey, we're sending Tom.
What? You got
to
like
you.
The treatment.
So they would always put me in the shot, like center, like so that my face was clearly seen. Again, I don't know
need to
Carl
pull
Joy,
these up.
but here's so about 15 years later, I'm telling this story at lunch, and someone goes, "Oh my God, I know Gordon Webb. He is gonna love this story."
Did you meet Gordon?
I never met him. Never met him, but I do know he knows about the story because that story was told to him.
I feel like we need to
amazing.
arrange a meeting here somehow. And
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little nervous now, but
that is amazing.
how many hours did you spend in confessional for this?
No,
Yeah.
zero, dude. It's Hollywood, baby. You gotta hustle. It's
This is a story. It's fitting because Shameless. You worked on Shameless,
Yes,
yeah?
yep.
This is a Frank Gallagher story. This is him going to LA and everything just works out in his favor.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, so before I know we're getting close to wrap time, but I wanted to ask you about selfishly because I'm interested on your IMDb. You have a huge list of films and TV shows: Chicago Med, Chicago Fire. I want to ask you about two.
Ocean. You're working on some of the Oceans, right?
Ocean's
Ocean's
12.
one of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another great story.
This is for clickbait. This story.
Sure.
Altogether, so-
I want to
give
know
us the
about
goods.
that.
Well, I mean, it's not as good as the Gordon Webb story for sure.
That was
but
hilarious.
I was very lucky. I worked for this excellent. He's a camera operator now, Rob Carlson. He was big time in Hollywood. He was well known as a camera assistant, overall focus puller. This is all the film days, and he took me under his wing as a second AC, and that's how I got on these opportunities, because other big guys from Los Angeles knew Rob, and if they were going to come to Chicago, they're going to call him, and then whoever he recommends was going to get the job.
Okay.
And so I am on this movie, Ocean's 12, and I really didn't know who Soderbergh was. I mean, I kind of knew, but I wasn't like fanboy or anything like that. I was just like, it's a job, whatever.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I will never forget. I come to work one day, and you get the call sheet and you see the the scenes that are listed, and you see the cast numbers, who's going to be in the scene. And that was a big thing for a second AC because you had to put marks on the floor for the actors. And so every actor needs their own like color tape, right? So number one on the call sheet gets red, number two, blue, etc. And I'm looking at the call sheet. I'm like, this scene has like 14 people in it. I need 14 rolls of tape, like different colored tapes, right? And so I'm just sitting there going, oh my God. And then we get to start to block the scene. And I'm looking in the room and I'm like, okay, Soderbergh, Matt Damon, like Carl Reiner,
all the big guys.
Yeah, Bernie Mac. I'm just like, what is going on right now? Brad Pitt, George
What is
Clooney.
this movie?
Wow.
Like, I'm just like, if a bomb went off in this room right now, Hollywood would be over. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. This is really crazy. Yeah. And Soderbergh is such a great director. He's very simple. He's the cameraman. He's very intimately involved in everything. Yeah,
He's behind the camera.
Yeah, it's his camera too, and it's his lenses. And
Interesting.
What do they shoot on?
it was a Red 1, I want to say.
Really?
Even back then, or Red Epic. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was a Red Dragon at that time. Steve Meisler was the first AC and focus puller, and he now is a great director of photography. Shot The Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
And,
I love that
yeah.
show. That's a
And
great
Red
show.
even created a whole Steve Meisler module, which he kind of designed and gave him a bunch of feedback on how to make the camera more useful for camera people. And
Do you find it hard to not fanboy? Or have you been around it now long enough?
No, I was trained very early on. You don't ask for their autographs.
Yeah,
don't look them in the eye. Working with method actors is a whole, unique situation.
How do you approach that?
No. To be honest with you, once you really get going, you realize that we're all just here to do a job. They're just regular people. I mean, during Ocean's 12, we would sit there with Matt Damon, or that was Contagion actually, and he liked to sit with the camera guys at lunch because he wanted to talk about cameras and business. Wow. And
he seems like a really cool guy, honestly, like down to earth,
super down to earth, very much, yeah. Definitely a filmmaker's filmmaker.
Yeah.
I have a great story about him, too, on Contagion. It was really crazy.
And
we'll have to save that one for another podcast.
All right, another time.
We just have, I don't want to.
It's a
keep going.
20-minute story.
yeah, I do. I do want to know. Okay, Shameless.
Yes.
And tell me about War of the Worlds.
Oh yeah,
War of the Worlds is one of my favorite movies. I do like Tom Cruise, but like that movie has such an insane just feel to it. Like you are in the movie because to me it's just like the lightning, and the weather is a part of it too in some of those scenes.
Yeah,
and that
Downish.
movie, it was like one of those where I'm like I was just fully in it.
Yeah.
So you were an AC on it?
Yeah, I was like a second AC,
Second AC,
and
okay.
it was the same team. So that did Ocean's 12, Contagion, and
Okay.
so those same guys, Steve Meisler, Tom Jordan, another excellent human being down in Atlanta. Those guys were Soderbergh's guys and Spielberg's guys, and so it just so happened like Soderbergh did a movie, then Spielberg did. So they would just jump.
Okay.
Soderbergh, Spielberg, and you know, whenever they came to Chicago, because I was in their network of good graces, they would give me a call. So when I found out about War of the Worlds, I kind of begged them, like, can I come and help you guys? I'll do whatever. And it was kind of the same deal. You can fly yourself there, and you can stay in my hotel, and we'll get you on set for a few days. You can help us out. The original. See, I grew up with the original War of the Worlds. That was like
I've
the
not seen that one.
1960s version of it. And I'm telling you, before you know the magic of Hollywood, learning the tricks of Hollywood does ruin movies for you. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
But before that, like, I remember those aliens and the smoke, and they're trying to like not be detected by being silent, and the face comes right up to them and smells them, and like, you know, like it was like Predator meets like it was all the things. And what a great ending too, just like the most amazing ending, which is like, sorry, Aztecs.
So did they shoot the whole movie in Chicago?
No, that was
they're just
New Jersey and New York. So I was only there for a brief spell.
Okay.
It was about, I'd say, 2 weeks in my recollection, but it was all the
Which
kind of
sequences?
outdoor stuff in the when the aliens first attack the small downtown area and cars go flying.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, dude, it was intense. And let me tell you, those guys, the special effects crews and how they make all that magic happen is so fascinating, so interesting,
I'm sure.
so physics and cables and magic.
Yeah.
And you know, fake roads, like where you know. And
that's like classic Spielberg storytelling too. Just like him running to his house, and like I like those sequences, and just the feeling that he gives you is like that will be with me probably forever.
Yeah, and I'm sure he was a big fan of the original movie too, because that was like that. You got.
I should watch that.
It's so good.
Yeah,
and because it's 1960s special effects, so it's like, is that a hubcap? Like it was basically like a street lamp tied to a hubcap, and then they put a flashing light in it, and it was so ominous and scary, and you were just like, oh my god.
Okay. Now tell me about Shameless, and this is just purely for me. It's selfish and for clickbait, because Shameless is a show that I have probably within the last year have gotten into, and it was so hard to like. It's kind of hard to watch when you first start it, because it's too real.
Yeah.
And I've always been fascinated. I would love to, I mean, just the writers and the director, or how to get that. It makes you feel like you're right in it, like you're with the Gallaghers. Yeah. It's such a well done show. So what was your job on that?
Okay, so again, I think so I was there for the pilot, which I was a second AC, I want to say, at that time.
Wow. Right from the get-go.
Yeah, and so, you know, you work on a lot in this business. You work on a lot of things. Barely ever do you like write home and go, oh, wait till you see this. On day one, we're filming just like kind of the opening credits, just like William F. Macy, like kind of morphing into this character and the things he's doing. And you get a couple takes in, and I'm like, this is different. This is wild. Like, this is going to be good, you know, which I would almost never say. Like, I've never felt that way, really. I'm like, this is going to be pretty good.
They're onto something.
They're onto something here. Now, in all fairness, it is It was already a series in Britain. So
Oh, was it?
Yeah, there's a Shameless. There's another non-U.S. Shameless.
Okay.
So it is an adaptation, or like kind of the Office.
Yeah.
The American Office version, but
Yeah.
again, probably better. And
Yeah.
And so they only come to Chicago. So this is a really complicated part of the filmmaking process.
This is what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, they only shoot the stuff outside in Chicago. Everything that's shot indoors is shot in LA. So they film for like 3 months in LA, and then they come to Chicago for 2 weeks and try to get all the pieces from 3 or 4 episodes that they need to.
And that's on
complete
location.
And it's all on location.
It's not
wardrobe changes, director changes,
Wow, what a
slate
thing to
changes.
coordinate,
I mean,
huh?
and so you shoot this one scene, and then boom, you're into a whole nother episode, maybe
Yeah.
with the same characters. Maybe the complications, the logistical complications, is mind blowing. And a great AD team and producer team has to figure all that stuff out and schedule everything, because you need. And then we would have 2 units going. So one unit's over here filming this, another unit's over here filming this. Wow. Well, maybe this unit needs this actor to finish this scene. So now we have to get this actor over here, get him in the right wardrobe, get him in the right lines, all that stuff.
So why not just shoot it in Chicago? What
this
are some
is
of
Chicago's biggest problem, honestly, is everyone lives in LA and everyone wants to live in LA.
Yeah, we're doing a commercial soon, and that's one of our issues too, is like people in LA. And then we got to bring them out here. So, but that's it. The actors don't want to come out.
Yeah, they have lives.
Be here.
They have kids. They have families. They have agents and people.
Okay.
So
when you're working on a movie, you're there for
and a TV show is like 9 months a year. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just too much to ask.
Okay.
But we had a system, and it went on for 11 seasons. I didn't do every single time that they come to town. Our schedules are just as complex as theirs. So maybe you're available, maybe you're not. Maybe someone else is available that they want to work with this time. There's all these other factors. But I did work on it several times over the years, and recently in the last season, I was asked to do steadycam and camera operate, and.
I'll be watching. I'm getting close to the last season, so I'm going to see if it's any different than the other.
Be sure to watch for the credits as it blinks past your face.
I'm going to send you a text.
I don't think I am credited, honestly.
Okay. Oh man, Tom, I have so many questions and so many things that we could go into. Give me a quick rundown. Uncredited.
Chico's giving
credited.
us a signal that we need to wrap this up. But
okay.
Yeah,
he's gonna
knuckles.
we do have another podcast coming in after this, so that's.
Do we? Oh shoot. Difference between credited and uncredited.
As long as the paycheck comes, that's all I really care for. This is great advice passed on to me too. Just remember, it's show business.
Yeah.
Everyone on the top, especially, is treating it like a business, and so should you. So you should act professionally, but ultimately, in the end, it's about getting that paycheck. You're investing your time and your talents that you've crafted over the years to help them achieve their goal, and that needs to be compensated, and rightfully so. It's a super hard concept for most artists to understand, or most creatives to understand, is that there is value in your ideas and that in your experience, and it's mostly just for your time. It doesn't matter if you have experience or not. You're there. You're helping. Your time is worth money.
Yeah.
And credit. I don't really care, to be honest with you.
So what if you're doing the same job? Why would you not be credited?
It's totally up to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's completely 100%
okay.
up. I mean, some people maybe have like credit placement in their contracts, like maybe a costume designer or a cinematographer or production designer. Maybe they do have stipulations in their deal memo that decides when and where their credits are placed, but everyone from
Chief Craft Services PA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, there's been movies where I worked on it for 6 months and like was there every day and didn't get credit. And then there's other jobs where I was literally there for 4 hours and got credit.
Interesting.
And so because those decisions are made so far later down the road when you're finally in post.
Who was there that day?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's up to the discretion of the producers ultimately.
You know, I think that first film that I was telling you about, I think I got a second AC credit on that.
Cool.
I think it was like an intern. I later looked and I was like,
Real deal.
that's cool.
Yeah. You definitely want to
official.
take a picture of that and tell your family.
See, it's a real job.
Yeah. Mom, she watches this. It's actually kind of cute. You know, last question. And Tom, I want to have you back. I'm going to preface that. There's so many, you're a wealth of knowledge, number one, and so many things that we can dive into more specifically. I know we were talking about that and dive into the science of it all and also the arts of it all. But last question, so all of our industry is relationship based. It's you have to keep up with these different people, different areas. And how do you, I mean, I find it hard just in commercial realm, like to have the commercial and film. It's like that seems like a daunting task, and just to keep on the radar of everyone. And, you know, you don't want to be needy, you know, so how do you approach that in trying to connect with everyone, not be needy, but still touch base and say, hey, I'm here. Do you need anything?
Yeah, I struggle with that too. I am not good at it. I'll be honest with you. However, I am thinking about it more, and I want to be better at it, and I do want to develop, you know, number one, just meaningful relationships in my life, which I feel like, you know, I am an outsider. I live in Rockford. I don't live in Chicago. Everybody in Chicago kind of gets together even after work. They go hang out or they have parties or dinner parties, and I miss out on a lot of that. And I know that would be good and better for my career overall. Yeah. But that's just not the cards that that's not the hand I'm playing. So I struggle with that a lot. I have the advantage of just being kind of like around for a long time. Like you said, everybody kind of knows my name. Yeah. I also kind of carved out a unique kind of niche in the business where I am this kind of one call, can do it all, equipment supplier, put a team together. And I feel like that's kind of what I had to do in order to be a Rockfordian in my life and have this career, is I had to kind of carve out this unique niche of like, I have tables and chairs and director's chairs and cameras and grip equipment.
Yeah. No, do you need a cooler with that?
Interesting. Yeah.
So I struggle with that. But the truth is, I think we all do. And I think that, you know, every time I've ever sent out an email or made a cold call, you know, in the beginning, at the very beginning, it was literally print a resume, and then I went door to door knocking on doors. Luckily, everyone's business was kind of in River North. So it was like you could do it in a day by walking. And there was there still is the Illinois Production Guide, which is a valuable resource to kind of learn who these people are, who you can contact. Yeah. And everybody's in the same boat. We're all freelancers, so there is grace and understanding of the process. And the trick is to do it frequently enough, but not too frequently. Yeah. And truthfully, it's so much about timing. It really is. Just even that letter that my mom wrote, you know, was, if that guy didn't have a job literally sitting on his desk and needing somebody to fill it, if that letter was a week earlier or a week later, it wouldn't have happened, right? Yeah. So, and that's just kind of the thing. You have to kind of be okay with that. And it takes a while to build a client list. So at first, maybe, I got one client. Next thing you know, I got 2 clients. Next thing you know, you got 3 clients. You keep doing that, and then this client went away, but now I got another new client. So there's kind of this ever evolving list, and then hopefully you get it to a point where now you can fill up a year with the jobs we need. And and you know, producers, like, maybe they get a job and it lasts 3 weeks. Well, a gaffer gets a job and it's only 2 days. So that's the same job, but that
a lot more connections too.
So now a gaffer needs, you know, 5 jobs to fill that same amount of time that one producer was able to do. So that's trickier. So kind of the more on the production side of things, you have to have a more robust clientele list. On the post side or the the other side, maybe.
Yeah,
you only need one job.
I'm kind of relieved to hear that that's still a struggle even for you after 33 years. 'cause
Yeah.
That's one of those things where you're like, I don't know if anybody really has really a grasp on it. And I heard somebody on Instagram recently kind of say, talking about business and networking and all that, and it was just like we are all to some extent just kids still learning how to do things. Basically, was to summarize it all, and I just love that because I'm like, yeah. Sometimes you feel like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this long enough. I'm like, this should come easy, but we're all faking it to some extent.
Information is key. And there are definitely some people who are great at it. They're very aggressive. As soon as they get information of a job coming through, they're going to find out who's in charge and who to call, and then they're going to send their resume. Honestly, my resume is I haven't updated it in 15 years.
Or your reel.
My reel looks like hell.
You and Colin were just talking about that.
Oh my God. Well, and I have this saying, the shoemaker's children run barefoot. And it's because
I love that.
You're so busy providing your services for other people, you don't have time to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that is another part of the freelance business is you are your own, accounting department, marketing department, janitorial department.
Mm-hmm.
Like
100%.
You have to do it all, and we're all good at, we all just want to be on set, and we all just want to be, pointing the camera and turning on lights. Yeah. But on the reality is that's maybe only 15% of the job.
Yeah.
The other 85 is figuring out how to get that 15%.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to wrap. Tom, thank you so much. Like
pleasure.
I said, I think we'd love to do. There's
another
probably
14
a
episodes
sub-series that we could do with you. We're on a time constraint now, but hey, I appreciate you sitting down with us.
My pleasure.
Really interesting
pleasure.
to get this insight. So we'll schedule another one soon.
Sounds good.
Love to talk more.
Go Rockford.
Go Rockford.
We're Rockford.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching this episode. Tom, what's your Instagram? Where can people find you?
So my company is Second Cine, 2NDCINE, and my reel is Ciciura.com, CICIURA.com. Again, I apologize. I am working on it. I will get to it maybe in the next 15 years.
All right. Beautiful, guys. Thanks so much. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.